And good morning, Patriots. It's Chris Cordani here, the backup catcher for Tony Shaffer. He'll be here in just a few moments. Tony is quite busy, so I'm passing along a nice wake up to all of you. As you know, Donald Trump bombs three very important nuclear sites in Iran. That was big news over the weekend. Israel is not letting up. What will Iran do next? Well, it looks like they might block off the Strait of Hormuz. I don't think that's going to last very long. As I said, Tony Shaffer is going to be here in just a few moments. I also have Edie Blum, who will talk to us. As you know, she's our expert on the Middle East. We're going to be talking about how this could escalate worse or what could happen from here moving forward. With me right now, though, is one of my favorite hosts from the America Out Loud Talk Radio Network, Booker Scott, host of Truth Be Told. Good morning, Booker.
Good morning, Chris. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And what a voice! I gotta like that voice. That's why I had to have you on here one of these days. We're actually gonna have Dr. Li Ming Yin. So this is gonna be like a Malcolm Out Loud week on.
It is, yeah. I've had her on my program before as well. I have a face for radio too, so I don't do a lot of video.
Same here. So we're the paper bag crew. The eye candy will be coming very soon. So don't worry about that, people out there. But good morning to everybody. Welcome to Booker. Let's just get right into it. The news comes out. I'm watching the Mets, and the Mets, of course, have been dropping a lot of bombs all week. Last week, anyway, they lost 7 of their last 8. So, as you know, it's disappointing to be a Mets fan.
I saw they lost a few to my Tampa Bay Rays last week, so I was paying attention to that.
But let me get to the Rays on that. Since we're going to go to Iran, the Rays have been playing phenomenal baseball over the last month and a half. What is going on with that team?
They're such a fun organization to watch. And, they have the lowest payroll year after year, and they continue to win year after year. It's fun to watch. Unfortunately, we may lose them. I'm not sure, but I hope that we're able to keep them because they're fun to watch. They're a great team. They do things the way teams used to do it through the farm system. And that's what makes it so much fun. You see these young guys come up, and then they produce, and they're playing so well. It's fun to watch. They've almost caught the Yankees.
And I almost was thinking this team is doomed a little bit because Wander Franco is the guy they're putting a lot of their chips on. But this is a next man in mentality, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I do too, and I think that's why they're fun.
And you want to see the Tampa Bay Rays, the people of action. They are sort of a lot like the Trump administration. Yes, Trump has a lot more money than the Rays organization combined. But having said that, he's a good guy with the next man in mentality. If somebody's not doing a good job, he always has somebody ready to take over. But he has a good crew with him this time out. And I'll tell you what, although the Democrats are crying and whining, it's illegal, international law. The fact is, Donald Trump has been more decisive than past presidents over the years, not worrying about optics. And I think that's a good thing at this point.
Well, every president has said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, but none of them were willing to do anything about it. And now you have these congressmen that are saying there should be a War Powers Act. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I see Thomas Massie is leading that from the Republican side. You have Ro Khanna on the left. And, that's crazy to think that you would take that ability away from the executive branch. So that's one element of it. And then you have the element that Donald Trump said, I am no longer the hunted, I'm the hunter. And I almost wonder, was that more than prophecy when he said that last Wednesday or Thursday, that he already knew what exactly he was going to do, even when he said the 2 weeks, which obviously was only a diversion to get maybe Iran feeling like we have further out to make the decision on what we're going to do. And of course, it came within 48 hours of that statement from Caroline Leavitt.
We have a lot of comments about the bombing. I was reading up on Loves Christ says success. The subterfuge was spectacular. I'm hearing from Patim. Oh boy, this is what happens when you're nearsighted on live radio and live streaming. Iran needs to be made to be glass. Bomb them into extinction. Okay, I get that. If Iran starts striking the U.S. or even tries to come close, they know we can turn it into a parking lot. But one thing that's very important about Donald Trump's strikes, and I'm going to stress this, he made sure not to hit civilian areas. He hit strategic points with bombs that would blow up underground, and that's important.
And Chris, I think people also forget that Iran was bombing our troops. in Iraq for years, off and on. And they have chanted death to America for 40 plus years.
46.
And, Van, yeah, I know. I always say 40. Time is flying by. The older I get, the harder it is for me to keep up. But
We're turning into Joe Biden's.
Van Jones, not one of my favorite people, but I heard him say on CNN last week, and it made a lot of sense because this is an 80-20 type of proposition for the American people. 80% of the American people do not want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. And so it seems like it would be very simple to do what Donald Trump did without any political backlash, but yet here we are. There is some. Van Jones said this last week on CNN. He said, they have chanted death to America for 40 years. They have chanted death to Israel for longer. One of those two things needs to offend progressives. And that's pretty smart. That should offend somebody and make everybody really happy about what happened over the weekend. And there should be an amount of patriotism as well when you consider what we just did with these B-2 bombers, taking them across the world without anybody noticing, going into this country, again, without them noticing, without a shot being fired at them, dropping the ordinance that they did to get rid of Iran's nuclear capabilities with the centrifuges there in 3 different nuclear site locations. So I think we have to take some pride in what our military was able to accomplish over the weekend. And for those that continue to say this is going to escalate to a regional war, I know you have an expert coming on later. I have experts as well. And from what I have gathered over the last couple of years in asking the questions, because in April or May of 24, and then again in October, we had the same type of thing between Israel and Iran, where they exchanged weapons and exchanged firepower. And everybody at that time said it's going to escalate to a regional war. Neither one of those times did that happen. And you have to ask yourself why. If you look around, you can get the answer. Right after October 7th, 2023, when Hamas invaded Israel and took 1,200 to 1,400 people to their death, and then raped and pillaged children and women and took hostages. Right after that, Hezbollah started raining missiles in from Lebanon. And we saw what Israel did to Hezbollah in Lebanon. The pagers is an incredible story. It also shows the long-term missions of Israel and what they're doing, because Hezbollah in Lebanon actually goes back to 2006 in a UN resolution 1701. Nobody could be in South Lebanon. They did that to try to put an end to Hezbollah and Lebanon and their conflict that was going on at the time. The important thing about all of that going on is the response to all of the other nations in the Middle East over the last 18 months. There has been none. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, you name them. Jordan has been helping Israel by shooting down missiles from Iran over the last 10 days. So that should tell everybody what they need to know when it comes to a larger regional conflict. And boots on the ground for America is never going to happen. I don't even know why this is a consideration. When it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, I'll let your expert talk about it later. I don't know that Iran has any capability to do that.
Well,
and if you watch, yeah, they're going to attempt, but as soon as they fire a missile, now that there are now 3 carrier groups in that area, they're going to be shot down, and it's not going to be effective. They do not have the weaponry or the power to do the things that all of these people on mainstream media are talking about. I think it was a fantastic thing what Donald Trump did. It is scary. I understand. I think the scariest part of it is something that Tom Homan mentioned over the weekend, which is a sleeper cell here in America, because you and I both have talked about it for well over 2 years. Since Joe Biden opened the southern border, we have had an influx of, not just illegal immigrants, but terrorists. I forget the number. It's over 1,500 terrorists were encountered at our border. Over 700 of them have been allowed into our country. We don't know where they are. They're unvetted.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start with the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, they're going to block it, or at least they're going to try. I don't think it's going to last very long. In fact, they started a poll here. Booker, I want to know what you think. First off, if Iran actually tries to block the Strait of Hormuz, how long do you think that's going to last? I'm putting in for 1 hour. What do you think?
It may last a little bit longer. I would say 48 hours, a couple of days to get it all cleaned up. Because if I was Iran, I wouldn't shoot everything at one time from the same launcher so that I could be identified to be killed by a missile from a U.S. submarine that's sitting out there waiting for it to happen.
That's true. And of course, that reminds me of the Vince Vance song from back in 1979. Was it 79 or 80 where the song was Bomb Iran, the parody of
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that floating around lately.
Well, that's been around. It was one of the first. It was during the first couple of years of Khomeini, of the first Khomeini. Well, the Khomeini's rule, not Khomeini.
Yeah, there were a few songs in pop culture at that
But I
time.
just like the Barbara Ann Bomb Iran rhyme. That's pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
You want to go to the? Let's go to the Patriots. Let's get some numbers from them. Denise goes up to 12 hours. M Heath
good.
446. Argon 1 day. All right, that makes sense. 1 day sounds good. That goes to your 48 hours. I mean, you're giving them a lot of credit, I suppose.
Well,
Chris,
I just
not 1
wouldn't.
day.
I wouldn't shoot all of the missiles from all of my launchers at once. I would spread it out over a period of time, knowing that I was going to be recognized and killed.
Well, I got American Marks saying they'll never block the strait at all, which is a possibility too.
Yeah,
Because
I agree. I think
they
that's
don't want to piss
good
off
point.
China either, do they?
No, that's another element of this. I mentioned this last week on one of my programs. If I were China right now, especially since that carrier group left the South China Sea, I would certainly consider that right now may be a good time to look at Taiwan, that they have said that they are going to, quote, reunify with.
Right. Now, another question that's been going on and floating around the media, and I know that the U.S. is not interested in technically nation building, but potentially giving the people of Iran a chance to push in their own regime change, probably backed by us in one way or another, most likely covertly. But we'll talk to Tony more about that when he comes in because he's the ops guy. But I want to ask, what you think? I want to talk to you about this. We learned our lesson when it comes to nation building in the Middle East. It's not going to happen the right way.
No.
A new leadership is going to deal with insurgencies for a very long time. But let's say, what are the chances, in your opinion, of a potential regime change coming from inside Iran? Of course, again, between you and me, I'm sure there will be covert forces from us and our allies helping this along.
A couple of weeks ago, I thought that it was a good possibility. I don't really know that the people of Iran have the intestinal fortitude to do what it takes. And to your point, I think they would need help. We know that hasn't worked in the past. We sort of saw in Syria that that's what happened. We kind of left that alone and they worked it out on their own. And I think that's probably what should happen in Iran. Here is the issue with the people of Iran. Sometimes we forget that Iran has a police state and they have a state police. They also have the Iranian Republican Guard. And if anyone is to take a chance now in Iran to come out against the regime, which we know 80% of the people in Iran are not for that government, if they come out and they fail, they will die. And that is the problem that these people face. If they come out to go against the regime, the state police or the Iranian Republican Guard, when all of this settles down, they will find these people and they will be dead. And
if they lose,
if they lose. And for us as Americans, we really haven't had that for 250 years, that we're going to do this or we're going to die. And that's kind of the question that the people inside of Iran have to be asking themselves right now.
Exactly. That's an interesting point, too. It's easy for us to sit on the sidelines and say, let's get rid of this guy. It has to happen.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a 46-year theocracy and police state at the same time. Not easy to overthrow. It's like saying,
and a mindset, Chris. Right. It's also the mindset of the people. They understand, they have lived in this, and they know that if they fail, they are dead. And I don't know that many people want to take that chance.
Right. And this isn't just a quick death. You're not talking about executions. My guess is, because of the human rights history of this regime, you're looking at slow death. You're looking at near Kim Jong-il type, Kim Jong-un now, I guess, type of problems here. And that's another issue. But you're right. And it's easier said than done when you're the guy that doesn't have to do it.
That's correct. Right. Yeah, I think it's a tough question. If I were Iranian today, sitting there, what would I do? I don't know that I could honestly answer that question, having never been there.
Well, let's go home because the Democrats are so desperate to find a way to go against Trump and look smart at the same time, which they haven't been able to do for the past few months. They just can't seem to do this whole thing right. They're just they're lost at this point. So their immediate Pavlovian response to virtually anything Trump does is to say or take the opposite stance. I saw Adam Schiff. I could play a clip of that in a little bit, where he had to kind of balance himself by saying, yes, we don't want Iran to have nukes, but Trump did it and it wasn't nice, or we shouldn't have done it because Trump did it. When, did you ever think over the last year and a half that John Fetterman would be the brains of the outfit by now?
He is. And I think maybe 2 or 3 years, there's not a chance in the world I would have ever had that thought. But that's how scary things have become in this country. We look to John Fetterman as the voice of reason for the Democrat Party. That's how far they have fallen.
Well, it's interesting. I said this after he got elected. The Mehmet Oz was the guy who ran against him. He got Trump's backing and everything. But Pennsylvania is a state that likes their own. They don't like interlopers, and they don't like people, carpetbaggers, somebody from another state to come and tell them what to do. At least they like this guy. He's from mid Pennsylvania. He's not a city guy, and he's considered the guy who's like your coach, or I suppose your regular guy. And
but Chris,
he had to go with the line.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying he had to go with the line for a while, but right now he's actually stepping outside of the party line and saying, "Look, you guys have to have some common sense here. We look like idiots if we're going to go against what makes sense."
Yeah, and I think he's also doing what the people of his state would want.
Right.
They voted heavily for Donald Trump in November. Senator represents everybody in the state, not just a district like in the House of Representatives where you have 435 representatives that only represent 800,000. And I would think that Fetterman really is reflecting the Democrats of Pennsylvania, not the far left, but he's also representing the Republicans and all people of the state of Pennsylvania when he is coming with common sense. And while it is refreshing, that is really what all senators should do, is represent the people of the state. And I think that's what Fetterman is doing in this case. And it's kind of nice to see.
Exactly. And let's see, the opposite of Fetterman obviously would be Adam Schiff. Well, I try to pull that one up here. Adam Schiff is this is another one here. This is a crazy lady here from let's go to this one.
I like crazy ladies.
Yeah,
let's go to that.
CNN. Scott Jennings, bless him. He has to go on with about 3 or 4 Dems at a time, or some kind of moderate neocon and a bunch of Dems at a time, just to and debates all of them, and he constantly beats them. This is
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, this is a conversation. I was watching him on the Dana Bash show the other day with some of these liberals, like this Sochi, whatever her name is, who used to be a mouthpiece for the Dems. Check out this little conversation about the situation in Iran.
I think that there are a lot of questions that are being raised by Congress right now, and the reason that they're being raised is because normally you would need congressional approval for something like this. And I know that my friend here is laughing a little bit, but I will say,
I will cover Congress for a long time, but they gave a lot of that away.
But I will say, I mean, in order for the president to take action without congressional approval, he needed to show that there was a real true threat to the United States and that the strike would not cause escalation. The problem with this is that normally you would have a group of lawyers from all across the agency.
Look at Scott Jennings' face right there. He's like, this woman's an idiot. And this woman, and this Sochi, I guess her name is Sochi Hinojosa. Look how
good job.
she is.
Nice, Chris. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I couldn't do the name.
I did okay in Spanish class, but
you did good.
I'm pretty much sure I pronounced it incorrectly. I believe it's Hinojosa.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Look how smug this woman looks. Trying to say, I'm on CNN, so I can actually spout the party line and just say, I'm better than you, Scott Jennings.
Yeah.
I'm better than you people who are watching. And this guy's like, this woman's a moron. Want to hear some more?
Yeah, please.
That actually would make these determinations. Trump did away with that at the beginning of this administration. So it's unclear what type of legal advice Trump was getting. The Department of Defense usually puts out a statement and says what the legality is of any strike that the president is taking.
Oh, so basically we have to make statements now before we bomb or they made the statements afterwards. You cannot let anybody know what's going on, Booker.
Well, they would rather take all of the constitutional powers given to the executive branch away from them and have a debate. So let's have a debate for a few days about dropping some bombs to get rid of Iran's nuclear capability so that AOC and Ilhan Omar and Jayapal can run their mouth for 3 or 4 days. And meanwhile, whoever it is that we're trying to take care of can prepare for the strike and move things, and it becomes ineffective. I would argue that if this were the case, then Osama bin Laden may still be alive today if we had to go get permission every time SEAL Team 6 went to go do something. So this is stupid. That's what this is with these House of Representative members like Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna who are talking about the War Power Acts. If you go back in history, we've only declared war 5 times. Now, maybe there is something that should be said about defining what a war is. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years and we never declared war. We were in Vietnam. The 5 times we've done it, and I'm going to forget one, I believe, but it was 1812. It was World War I, World War II. Obviously those. So 5 times. The last one was in 1942 in World War II. And that was the last time we declared war. So I understand the argument. Maybe there is a definition of what war is before we do something that gets us involved for 20 years. But you can't take away the authority, the power, and the decision-making of the executive branch to do what we did over the weekend or what we did with Osama bin Laden, because that is for national security and for our safety.
Yes, and by the way, it kind of has to depend on what the definition of is at this
Yeah,
point.
but we can't even define that. We still
Right.
haven't, all the
Exactly.
way back to Clinton.
Hey, yeah, I was going to say, a party that can't define a woman sure as heck can't define a police action, war, or strike.
No.
That Article 2 of the Constitution does clearly define the executive powers of the president, and part of that, he is the commander in chief of the armed forces. Yes, he cannot let the Americans know, and frankly, he's right not to consult with Democrats because I'm not sure if some of
Yeah.
them, one or two of them, would rat to the Iranians about this and have them evacuate.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
again,
no,
that's
good
speculation on
point.
my end. I'm not saying they're treasonous. I'm just speculating that one or two might, well, narc on them.
No, that's a great point. That's why you can't do it. And that brings up another thing about what happened over the weekend. There were no leaks. This was really a beautiful military exercise. And again, I think it's one that all Americans should take pride in. 100% of Americans should. This is not a political thing, what our military did over the weekend. And unfortunately, we have politicians that try to make it a political thing.
And that is exactly what Well, apologies for that. Apparently, the internet went down, but I'm back here and we're here on. I can't believe that happened on uh on Wake Up Patriots. Chris Cordani here. Booker, I guess we lost as well. So something must have gone on with StreamYard. Maybe that's what it was. But I do have Ruthie Bloom coming in just a few moments. I did want to talk to you about this, and I'm sorry we lost Booker. I'll have to check in and apologize to him. I guess you know what? StreamYard should apologize to us. But again, different story for a different day. Thank you, everybody. So we had a good time here with Booker. He apparently thought I must have dropped on him, but it's all good. We like him. We're going to have Booker back on if you like him. What do you guys think about that? But we'll get into all of this. How about this? I was going to play around with this in a little bit here and talk about what was going on with Iran, with Iraq, and maybe some of these crazy people from CNN. And we're going to get onto that in just a few moments as well. But I do want to play another one for you. So we're going to do that. And Ruthie, I am going to get you on in just a few moments if you can hear me, because your camera is a little bit off. I'll leave that on in just a bit. Tony will be here soon. So we're going to have a terrific time. However, let's play some more of Xochitl's greatest hits from CNN. Now, that's Pete Hegseth. We're going to play Xochitl's greatest hits from CNN. And that she was talking with Scott Jennings again, trying to be a little bit smug. And I don't know where this woman's coming from. Let's just do this right now. Let's hear from her at the moment.
And the fact is, we have a strong president, a decisive president, and the most lethal military in the world. And there's a huge difference between what's going on in Iran right now and what happened in Iraq over 20 years ago. So I think having J.D. Vance out is great. I think having Marco Rubio out is great. I think the president bringing his whole national security team out and showing that
Jennings makes common sense. It's like foreign to these people at CNN.
With great precision,
great
resolve, and the execution of this was flawless. It ought to give the American people, a lot of confidence in.
That chick's ready to pounce here, by the way. It's Xochitl again.
The confidence in our government right now as compared to what we had in previous administrations.
Here, and the implications of this is that they do escalate, they do attack Americans abroad, and that we end up seeing a back and forth and war moving forward.
This is not an escalation. This is a de-escalation.
Well, Trump promised escalation.
This is not
Trump promised escalation.
Iranian bunker busting bombs is not an escalation.
Because what she said.
It's not an escalation. This is something that was warned a long time ago. And this is what this Sochi chick, and apparently a lot of people on the left either don't understand or deliberately ignore. And that's the important point about this. Donald Trump gave Iran 60 days to sit at the table and say, look, we're going to have to fix this whole thing. It also predicates on you not having nuclear capabilities to build a nuclear bomb. And that's important. However, they didn't come to the table. They were, as Benjamin Netanyahu put it last week, they were stringing Donald Trump along. And you don't string Donald Trump along. That's important. But hey, they did. And they figured, well, maybe he's just like Obama. He's all talk and no action. Maybe he's just like Biden. He'll forget. No. And the strike, again, was not on civilians. The strike was perfectly orchestrated, ready to roll, and right on 3 very important nuclear research facilities. These people had, I believe, from what I'm understanding, the reports are telling me, 60% uranium enrichment. We cannot allow this. And this Sochi, by the way, and I don't have the clip of that, earlier in this program, she was trying to say that all of this escalation, all the nuclear capabilities that Donald Trump has, that Iran has, that all is all Donald Trump's fault. He's trying to say, well, Donald Trump backed out of the agreement. He backed out of the Iran agreement. No, he backed out of that agreement because it was bad for America. It was bad for the West and bad for anybody outside of Iran. Barack Obama took assets that were frozen previously, $6 billion, and gave it back to Iran. If they promise not to build a nuclear facility. So, of course they did. And as you know, they always cross their fingers when they shake hands with Americans or anybody they consider infidels. John Quincy Adams warned us about that weeks ago. No, I didn't say weeks ago. I said that weeks ago. John Quincy Adams warned us about that. A century and a half ago, 2 centuries ago. 2 centuries ago. And they still fall for it. We cannot take the word of a theocracy that chanced death to America for decades, whose leadership chanced death to America for decades, and it'll tell us, no, we're not building anything. Barack Obama himself even acknowledged that they're building something. Yes, he acknowledged that they're building a nuclear program with that money. So Trump says, forget it. We're going to freeze what we have then. And the Democrats are like, how dare you? So this Sochi Hermosa, again, apologies for my terrible pronunciation. I'm Italian, so people pronounce my last name wrong all the time. I'm fine with it. It's laughable. She's trying to say that that Trump is the reason for Iran having a nuclear program. No, now Trump is the reason for them barely having one. Now I'm hoping that Ruthie's camera is working right now. Ruthie, can you hear me? I'm sure you can hear me right now.
I can hear you, and my camera should be working.
Oh,
and, it's on. I don't know what's the matter. Let's see. I'm looking here. Let me check this out.
We're gonna work this out, Ruthie. But while we're doing that,
gotta work it out. Yes. Oh, right. There we go. Do you see it?
Welcome, Ruthie Blum.
All
and
right.
Tony will be here in just a little bit. Tony, as you know, is very busy with Newsmax right now, and he's going to pop in here. We're going to talk about it. But I want to talk to you. You've seen the events of the weekend. I'm pretty sure technically it's not surprising. The timing could be surprising.
Yes.
But this shows.
Like to just point out something.
Yes.
And that is that normally I live in Israel, and I happen to be in New York just when everything exploded, literally and figuratively, when Israel launched the strike in Iran and when President Trump joined in this weekend. And unfortunately, I'm sitting in New York rather than at home in Israel.
All right. Well, I'll say, and again, we're not at war, but we had to do what we had to do. Donald Trump said, hey, 60 days. You don't do anything, we're going to do something about that. They should have known. They figured, well, we're not going to do anything wrong. What's Donald Trump going to do? Close down Trump Tower, Tehran? We don't have one. So, welcome, Tony Shaffer, who's the busiest guy.
Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Chris.
So, pass the baton
I'm
over
here
to you.
I'm here to forecast that we will have a Trump Tower in Tehran at the end of this decade.
Well, that's a good thing. And look, that might happen. It'll be a Trump Gaza, Trump Tehran, and maybe even Trump Qatar. You know, the funny thing is, Ruthie, did you know that Qatar left OPEC for a little while? It's a little known fact that they left OPEC for like 3 or 4 years. And the group was really upset, and they were just like they're trying to figure out what to do, because Qatar was kind of their go-to, where they'd always like to play both sides and everything. And finally, they decided to rejoin. So you know what the rest of OPEC said when Qatar rejoined?
What?
They said, "Welcome back, Qatar."
Oh God!
Oh my goodness!
Come on,
all right,
man. Oh man, Chris. Let's hope the evil overlord is in a good humor this morning when he sees this. Just saying.
Well, hopefully he was in a good mood when he saw the Sochidi's greatest hits from CNN, when she was talking with her CNN panel and Peter and Scott Jennings. Gotta love Scott Jennings. I want to get to both of you here, since you guys are the intelligence people. I'm just the guy who talks. Anyway. Here you go. I put a pool out here for the Patriots, and Booker Scott, our first guest, was saying 48 hours. Right. Booker says 48 hours. I say 1 hour. If Iran tries to block the Strait of Hormuz, how long do you think that's going to last? There's a pool going on. So how long do you think it's going to last?
Tony, you get to answer that.
Well, my answer, it's not going to start at all, because China's not going to put up with it. China gets 1/3 of its oil from Iran. So, they're not going to upset the Chinese at this point, since they need the Chinese, Chris. It's not going to happen.
Right.
That's my forecast. Ain't going to happen.
Right. That's what we said. But they're not. They don't want to tee off the Chinese. If they don't want to tinkle off the Chinese, if you will. Ruthie, your thoughts?
Okay, look, my thoughts in general are that this is such a clear victory on the part of Israel and the United States. And you don't have to call it war if you don't want to. No, actually, war is a battle between two sides. This is these are strikes on targets, enemy targets. This, is the a terrorist regime that spreads terrorism around the globe, and therefore, even to treat it as a war, we don't have soldiers on the ground there, and they don't have soldiers. That is not what's going on here. We meaning Israel cleared out the arena, so to speak, and then President Trump said, okay, and now we can bomb the nuclear sites. This is a beautiful joint operation to take out a really pernicious force that is bad for the entire world. And I just want to point out something. You were mentioning CNN. It's really disturbing to me when conservatives and Trump supporters start to sound like the far left. It really bothers me, and I think they should cut it out. This is something that all Americans and all Israelis and anyone in the West actually should be proud of and support.
So I want to add a couple things to that point. I was on, and by the way, for the fans, some folks have already been watching me this morning. I've done 3 hits on Newsmax this morning, 2 on N2, 1 on the main channel. And Ruthie and I, we should ask them to put us on together more often, because I think we have a great rapport.
That would work.
I think we do a great job together.
I agree.
Yeah. So to that point, I brought up my book, Operation Dark Heart, for those who have read it. And in the book, the interrogation, it's a pretty chapter 9 of the book. You can see there's all the happy redactions. There you go, DOD, all the Obama folks. The reason they redacted the interrogation chapters a lot, you can look at that. There's a lot of redactions in there.
Wow.
Is because the IRGC, we were interrogating an IRGC Iranian operative in Gardez, Afghanistan in 2003. Last time I checked, we were fighting the Taliban and Al Qaeda, but no, the Iranians sent over operatives to fund the resistance, and we, the U.S. military special forces, rolled up one of these guys in Gardez. So the 2 chapters that they got they got upset about a lot of stuff. They always get upset with me. I don't know why. They're always upset with me. Anyway, I know. Anyway, they heavily redacted those chapters because this was an Iranian who had funded the initial terrorist attacks against U.S. forces in eastern Afghanistan. This is all the way across Afghanistan, opposite from Iran. So, Ruthie, I think all things considered, by the fact that the Iranians have been killing Americans for the past 50 years, I think we had justification to go in. What do you think?
Absolutely. Not only justification, moral imperative. Okay. And I'll tell you something else that disturbs me. And I'm saying this, I know some people have criticized me because they think that I say I'm some kind of, they call me a neocon warmonger, and I'd like to say,
no. We're not neocons. I know there's a difference.
I am not a neocon.
There's a difference. I know. I know. I get the same thing.
Citizens, okay.
And I don't consider myself a warmonger because I believe in victory over
I am anti-war.
enemies. Okay,
but you got to have backbone. You got to have backbone on occasion.
And as the mother of 4 soldiers and reservists and all that in Israel, I can say that it also disturbs me, this talk about how we cannot endanger our troops. Of course, we don't want to endanger our troops. Would I want my son in uniform killed? Of course not. But troops are there to protect civilians and the country, not the other way around. And especially when you think of the difference between Israel and America. Israel, you're drafted, you have to go to the army. In America, you do not. It's voluntary. So, and if you have troops stationed in the Middle East, and what you say is, no, we cannot attack our enemies because then they might hit our troops. Then what do you need troops for? Okay, I'm finding a lot of disturbing
terrorist
language.
threat. It's a terrorist threat, of course.
And again, I just want to reiterate. This was an operation to take out facilities that were going to be set to destroy other countries with a full nuclear program. Now, this is not where we decide to bomb a city. We didn't try to bomb non-combatants. And believe me, if you're going to tell me these scientists are not non-combatants, they're trying to build something to destroy Israel, America, and other Western nations. They're combatants, if you will. I want to ask you guys, the Democrats are all whiny about not being informed. And the fact is, you can't tell any of them. I brought this up, and Tony, Ruthie, I want to play Adam Schiff in just a little bit, but I want to ask you a question. Do you think that it was a great idea not to tell them because one or two of them, and again, I'm not making straight accusations, but I think there's a speculative possibility that one or two of them might narc on them?
Well, not just narc on them. Leaks happen all over the place. And so you can't tell anybody. I mean, you can barely tell the members of your own administration. And I'll tell you, this was the greatest fake out in Israel and America that we've ever seen. And journalists were totally duped by it. Thank God.
Tony, I asked you a question last week on the air here. I asked you about the idea that Donald Trump took out the E-48, the doomsday machine. And you said to me off air and on air that it was all part of theater. This was brilliant. A whole week's worth of theater that led up to this.
Well, people ought to watch the show and they'll learn something, right, Chris?
That's right.
Maybe they'll learn something. So, no, by the way, Ruthie, there's a secret operation ongoing right now to go after the Democrats called let me look at it, Velvet Paddle. They're going to paddle the Democrats with a velvet paddle. So just saying that, I think that's going to be implemented in San Francisco, right, Chris?
Yes, but I think Eric Swalwell wants a piece of that. Speaking of wanting a piece of
Speaking of,
let's hear from Adam Schiff, one of the people who was fairly disappointed. He was disappointed with not being told much at all and not having intelligence shared with him. But the fact is, he's a national security threat, but he also had to straddle the idea that the Democrats have no popularity and Trump did the right thing, even though he really didn't want to say it in so many words. Let's hear him.
These strikes again against Iran last night. He says that they have been successful. Do you see any upside, any positive news for the security of the world in learning of the success of these strikes?
First of all, Casey, I want to express my gratitude that the pilots are all out safely and acknowledge the skill, the bravery, and the professionalism of all the military forces that were engaged in this military operation. But it's not an operation that should have ever been authorized by the president in the absence of intelligence showing that Iran had made the decision to break out and build a bomb. The intelligence.
All right, Tony, this goes to you and you, Ruthie. I believe there was enough intelligence to tell us that they were 60% in uranium enriched, if that's the case. Am I correct here? And that's even the public knowledge. So
yes,
intelligence must know more.
And by the way, the International Atomic Energy Agency, no friend to Israel or America, by the way, said recently that Iran has enough enriched uranium, in other words, 90%, I assume, to create 9 nuclear bombs. So all of this business about there being no proof and all that is ridiculous. And anyway, Adam Schiff ought to be hanging his head in shame altogether. Okay. I mean, the fact that he even dares open his mouth at all, you wonder how he has the gall.
Yeah, well, loves Christ says he's the son of Satan. That's not true. He's Satan's left testicle. Just like look at that face. That's the face of a testicle. Look at that. No, look at the face. Just look at the face. So to carry on what Ruthie's saying, it was announced this morning. There's approximately 400 kilograms, 900 pounds, give or take, of missing fissile material, which means that and this is the Israelis saying this. I believe it's true because it had to go somewhere. So I think this was a brilliant plan. I think it was a brilliant deception plan. The thing is, I think the Iranians were worried enough to move the stuff. So I think there's probably going to be a search now for this uranium. Now, I do believe, like Ruthie, they had enough material for 8 or 9 bombs. I do believe that sincerely. And 900 pounds of fissile material, that equates to about 8 or 9 bombs. With that said, we have to now get serious about next steps. What do we do next? I think the Israelis are doing yeoman's work and destroying the internal security controls of the mullahs. That is to say, they're going after the IRGC. They're going after other police. They're going to basically open the door for the Persian people to rise up and throw off the yoke of the mullahs. I think, right, Ruthie? I think that's what's going on. I think, and I think rightly so.
Oh, literally and figuratively, Tony. Israel today bombed the gates, the entrance to Evin prison, where all dissidents are tortured and executed, and women who didn't cover their hair properly or did something else along those lines are tortured and raped. And the reason to bomb the gates was to open the door, literally and figuratively, for those dissidents to come out. So we're going to see that for sure. But also, we bombed the Basij headquarters. On Palestine Square, there's a clock with a countdown to the annihilation of Israel. We destroyed that clock, which was also symbolic, after all. And we have bombed the access roads to Fordo. We're making a lot of strides, and much of it, of course, I don't know, and I'm not a military expert. I only know what is allowed to be revealed by the military censor in Israel. But it's clear we're making great strides. And another thing is that this idea of what do we do afterwards? It's not our problem what we do after, what Iran does afterwards. Our problem in Israel and the United States is to prevent those calling America the great Satan and Israel the small Satan from posing a threat. What happens afterwards? If the next regime poses a threat, we have to do the same thing. That's my view on the matter.
Yeah. That's a great view. I agree. So go ahead, Chris. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was going to ask you guys again. Look, another thing Donald Trump did brilliantly was keep a lot of the Democrats in the dark on this, kept the media in the dark on this, and made even the general public and Republican allies even think they're doing something else. So there wouldn't be any, I guess, temptation to say something or leak anything out there, even in gentle, polite conversation. So this was well done all around, and there was video, and I believe this had to come soon as well, because there was video I saw earlier about where there were trucks moving from a facility, possibly moving things out.
Yeah, exactly.
So things had to.
By the way, Chris, while we're on the truck issue, I vote we send Adam Schiff in. We send him in by B2. We drop him like a bomb on the trucks. What do you think, Chris? Can we drop Adam Schiff like a bomb under the trucks? I mean, he's got the head for it. He's got the penetrating head. It would just go right in and blow up the trucks.
Well, I think a better solution would be, since Adam Schiff is Jewish, I think the better solution would be to put him among the people he so champions, and see.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham
they don't
too.
Care that
older
he's got, and that they don't care that he's got progressive politics. If he's a Jew, he's a target. That's what I'd like to see, just to show him.
Another line he has to straddle as well, because he is so afraid to go against the party line, because he knows that's his bread and butter in California. Any aspiration to run for president will never happen. I think he's happy in his cushy position, but that's what he does. But he also has to look like, hey, you know what? Even people on my side are thinking this is a good idea. So I have to kind of straddle this a little bit, make sure Orange Man is bad, but what we did is somewhat good.
Well, yes, Patriots agree with us about dropping Schiff. By the way, they want us to add Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham would be another great airdroppable politician. I think he would make a big hole in the ground. Just say it. I think he's pretty good with holes. He's pretty good with holes. I've heard.
Yeah, true.
I've heard that. I don't know that. I've heard.
Or at least he can drive a stick shift. Anyway, he at least for his part at least supported the bombing.
Yes.
At least give him one credit. Broken clock, you know where I'm going.
Supported this. He did not behave like a traitor. He behaved like a patriot and not a traitor to the party or the country. Now, what's interesting is that in Israel, I have to say, this is very funny. In Israel, because this was kept such a secret, the hysteria started on both sides, again, as in America. But the hysteria in Israel wasn't, Trump should not enter the fray. It was like this. It was, the left of it. Bibi Netanyahu thought that Trump was his friend, but actually he's discovering that Trump doesn't care about him at all and doesn't care about anything at all. And so right now he's giving 2 weeks. He says he'll make a decision in 2 weeks. And then the others are saying, you see, Bibi Netanyahu thought he could pull Trump by the nose, but he can't. Both sides making fun of them. And all the while they were coordinating, planning this meticulously.
I said theater, right, Chris? I said it was all
Great
theater.
theater.
Yes, it
all
was.
theater.
Although
Right.
It was all
Netanyahu did issue a veiled warning. He issued one veiled warning while he was speaking with a gaggle of press last week. He said that I know I have the clip somewhere, but I'm going to say it. He said that he told reporters that that Trump gave Iran a chance to come to the table, 60 days, and they kept stringing him along. And he said to the reporters, you don't string along Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
true.
something that was the warning right there. So you knew right there something was going to happen. You just weren't sure what. But Trump, again, I'm going to keep going with this. Trump made sure that he targeted facilities with bombs that would only blow.
You're frozen.
I guess we're on our own for a second.
I guess
Senator.
we're on our own. I guess we're on
I
our
think
own.
the Iranians hacked into his brain.
They
and
must have.
short-circuited
They
it.
must have.
It's a cyber attack.
I'll
Chris
tell you-
has been cyber attacked.
Exactly. I'm sure he's fiddling with it to make it work now. You know, the best intelligence there, it turns out, both in Israel and in America, near the Kiryat, which is the Tel Aviv Defense Ministry headquarters, and the
Yeah.
Pentagon, right before Israel launched the strike, Domino's Pizza had 1 million deliveries.
I
over
know.
there.
I've heard about
Next
this. We've been talking about
And
this
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 is
morning.
actually
Yeah.
true, in both countries.
True.
See, so
That's true.
anybody who's paying
That's true.
attention might have said, we know what's happening.
That's true. So I think anybody who really wants to understand how the national security system works in either country, follow the pizzas.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Follow the pizza. And
Yeah,
and
so-
again, I want to say that Trump, and it's not just the nuclear weapons. Trump said, yeah, we have to end the nuclear program. But I am delighted that the Iranians, strung him on, or whatever you call it, led him on. Why am I glad? Because if they hadn't been both stupid and evil and Islamist ideologues, they would have said, okay, you're right, we're coming to the table. Okay, we won't have nukes. They would have pulled what they pulled with Obama, and then we'd all be in trouble. That they were honest, it was lucky for us, because they don't keep deals. If you make a deal with them, they don't keep it. The only deal that would have been acceptable, and I believe this when Trump was talking about the diplomacy, is what he meant was, you surrender, you wave a white flag, and then America will not obliterate you. I mean, basically, we're the greatest.
Well, there's something to that. Yeah, Ruthie.
Yes. Yes.
People tend to forget, and I did this the other day. The Iranian evil goes back to the bombing of the U.S. Marines in Beirut. They kidnapped a station chief and assassinated him. They went to war with our Arab allies, the Iraqis. They went back and forth. I just think it's important to people to understand the context is that Iran is up to no good and have been up to no good from the beginning. And I said on the last hour, I guess it was 2 hours ago on Newsmax on First Edition, my dear friend and mentor, Bud McFarlane, who was a national security advisor for President Reagan, said that he felt, and most of the Reagan guys feel, that it was a mistake to not go after Iran and stop the metastasizing of evil regarding the mullahs. They saw it back then, and they were reluctant to act in the 80s. Okay, then it got worse in the 90s. Clinton didn't do anything. We get to Bush. Bush 40, 41, 43 didn't do anything. It just kept getting worse. And then the Obama folks gave him money. And that funded a lot of the evil we see. So I think it's the Iranians saw weakness going back 50 years from the Americans. So, yeah, I think it came as quite a shock that finally Donald Trump says, yeah, we're not gonna take your nonsense, and it's time for us to give you a bloody nose. Maybe it'll get your attention. Because to your point, we aren't going to invade Iran. We're not. I mean, I can tell you that as a policy fact. We're not going to do it. With that said, we can do things to help destabilize your regime, and I think that's what we're going to do. So,
well, exactly, and it's in America's interest. It's in the world's interest, of course, not the not China and Russia's interest, but it's in the interest of Europe. Though, you know what? I don't care. Europe has shown itself to be to behave appallingly in these matters, but you're also forgetting. I mean, you mentioned important evil deeds that the Iranians did to Americans, but let's start with when the Ayatollah Khomeini came back from exile and the Islamic Revolution took place in 1979. American hostages, 52, were held captive in the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. And what about when the sailors of the U.S. Navy were humiliated by Iranians and made to go down on their knees, and then Obama thanked the Ayatollahs for releasing them? Okay, there have been so many acts of that
I know, it's like
humiliating America,
reinforcing bad behavior. Exactly, reinforcing bad behavior.
exactly.
Absolutely,
And
that's
yes,
something
in America,
one of the things. Yeah, you dare not show weakness to an adversary like Iran, and yet that's what we did over and over. We actually paid them for their evil. So I think it's long past due. And I've talked again. This is not a third-hand fiction. I actually talked to the guys at the Federal Reserve who had to put the pallets of $100 bills on the airplanes that were flown to Tehran. So it's kind of like, yeah, I know this happened. I know for a fact it happened. And we paid for the very thing that helped fund the 7 October attacks. And by the way, Ruthie, I think Americans, Democrats especially, should feel really bad about the fact that Biden helped perpetrate by funding and not holding Iran accountable. I would argue Joe Biden is a co-conspirator in the 7 October attacks. Is that too harsh?
Oh, no, it's not too harsh. I just was going to say it's even worse than that, because now we know that Joe Biden wasn't exactly president during his presidency. Okay, so it's even worse. I mean, I have nothing nice to say about Joe Biden, mind you, but it's even worse because of all the bad decisions he made. We now know that, part of it, Jill Biden, all those Obama leftovers surrounding him. This was a bad administration, and he was more a puppet than an actor. There's no question that America, you see, a weak America, the whole point of MAGA, the whole point, my interpretation, okay, I'm going to give you, some Talmudic interpretation, right? Make America great again is not only heal it from within. It's also that America, as the greatest power in the world, is a power for good, and it also puts the enemies in line. You don't need to go to war if the threat is credible. Your threat of use of force is credible, and that's what Trump is doing.
Yeah, true.
And you're back, Chris. Now we see you're back.
Yes. Oh boy, I'm going to have a little word with some people, but it's another story for another day. It is. I will ask this though. Again, the Dems' reactions were kind of predictable, but we saw Schiff. We heard from Fetterman, who's apparently the brains of the outfit there. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is absolutely desperate to run for president, and she's trying to claim this is an impeachable offense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. She absolutely has no idea what Article 2 even means in the Constitution.
Right.
No, I think she had to go back to her eyelash provider and get some new eyelashes. I think that would be.
But before we
know. I don't.
But before we go, Tony, Ruthie, I have a little fun for you. Let's try this. How about Antifa versus cast iron pan? Want to see this?
Yeah.
This is good. This is taken out. I believe, I think it was Andy Noah took this or put it on, or somebody put it on here. Let's check it out.
That's good.
But check this out. He's smoking when he's doing this.
Oh my goodness. You know, you can't make this stuff up. Okay, so you can't, there's no such thing as satire anymore. And
No. Well,
it's
so
unbelievable.
I just find it so interesting, though, Ruthie, here in the United States, and you spend time here, that we have the extreme left of lesbians, LGBTQ, XYZ people who support Hamas and all these Iranian guys. Like, how is it they don't understand? They'd be the first one thrown off the roofs and off Tehran high rises. How do they not understand that they're the thing that they most hate about Western society? How do they not get this?
Well, it's the marriage of Marxism and Islamism, number one, the Red-Green Alliance. And it also proves that stupidity and evil are not mutually exclusive. A lot of these people, the gay rights and the women's rights and all that, they have no clue. They don't know where the river to the sea is. They don't know which river, which sea. They don't know anything. But what they know, is that they want to pull down America. They want to pull down Western values. They want to destroy the family. That's a real Marxist thing. You destroy the family. And one way you do that is by saying there's no such thing as gender. And, anybody can give birth or not give birth. That's a perfect way to say that there is no such thing as family if there's no such thing as a man and a woman.
Yeah, that's true. So, well, I think, by the way, Ruthie, just for the record, I think most guys on the left, especially the Antifa guys, they're like G.I. Joe down there, if you know what I mean. Kind of smooth.
Yeah.
Just say it. Just say it. And that's okay. If you're smooth down there, God apparently was unhappy with you. I don't know what to say. But we got to go. It's been a good show, right? Right, Chris?
As
No
always.
no Antifa here.
No, not
That's
at
right.
all. Anyway, it's always a pleasure being with you guys. And Chris,
You
I'm
too,
sorry
Ruthie.
I'm sorry you froze for a little bit.
Iranians, it's the Iranians.
I know they're after me.
Doing
It's like, it's
a
what's going
cyber
on here.
hit on Chris.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Cyber hit on
Tony,
Chris.
you're next.
That's
The
right.
thing is, they
right.
don't hit Tony because they want to watch him on Newsmax.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah,
All right.
so-
Well, I gotta go. We gotta go. We'll see you all tomorrow morning, right?
Bright and early, we got Karen, Barry Morgenstern. On Wednesday, we have Dr. Li Ming Yin, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Great. Well, good seeing you all. Happy Monday, Patriots. Thank you, Ruthie, for being here. Chris, watch out.
Thank
Those
you.
Iranians are under your bed. The Iranians are under your bed. They're going to get you tonight. Just saying.
Them and the commies.